the Strength Beyond Struggle podcast and Ending the Silence program of the National Alliance for Mental Illness, NAMI, sponsored by Access. In every episode, we deal with difficult mental health topics, including suicide. So if you're struggling, remember, you can always get help by calling 988. Hey, welcome to the Strength Beyond Struggle. And today I have with me Candice Miller. She is actually works with me with Ending the Silence here in Arizona. She is our youth coordinator. She also is a youth presenter with the Ending the Silence program and has a story of her own about dealing with depression at kind of a young age. And Candice, depression, they say, is as complicated as cancer. So how did you get a diagnosis? I mean, when did things start, and how did you realize it was depression?
Well, I can say it did kind of start when I was kind of young. I can say that growing up, I was already kind of like an anxious person, very like type A, had to make sure everything was perfect, right? Um, I think it started more so when I was in middle school. I started just feeling like, okay, just the normal day to day stuff started becoming a lot because I was the kid that did everything. I was in cross country, I was in track, I was in basketball, I was in National Junior Honor Society. So I had to be like the best of the best. So,
That's a lot of pressure.
oh yeah, who are you telling? And so, yeah, about middle school, I think it just started becoming more apparent that it was really difficult to kind of keep up
Mm.
with that. It wasn't just the schoolwork, it was trying to keep the relationships with my friends. And I don't know, I started feeling a little bit like distant from everyone, even though I had my friends around me. It felt like I was by myself.
Oh,
Yeah.
so can you describe that a little bit? Like, how did you act that was differently?
I can say like, cause even though I was a really shy kid, if I knew you and we were comfortable, I was goofy. I was making jokes, all types of stuff. So that personality that was just very kind of outgoing, at least with my friends, it kind of died down a little bit. I became more quiet. You
Withdrew?
could
Did
just
you
tell
spend
I
more
was
time in your
somewhere.
room? Did you spend your
Yeah,
time
yeah.
and you didn't participate in activities? And
Yeah, I could say I was definitely withdrawn, or there were just times where you could kind of see I was like emotionally checked out. And my friends be like, "Are you good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," but there was stuff going on that I didn't really understand at that time. But yeah, I was, I think, around like 14, well, 12. Sorry, I was about 12. I was in middle school. I was in seventh grade when I started noticing the change of just, okay, this is really difficult to kind of keep up with. And I did start feeling a little bit of like sadness, this loneliness that I couldn't really like explain to someone, but I just felt that it was there. Yeah.
ooh, that's hard. So it sounds like to me that's really young, at 12 years old, to be starting with these things. So was there a crisis moment or a time when it was like, I can't ignore this anymore?
Yeah, yeah. I think it started getting to the point where um I couldn't keep, like I said, the schoolwork and everything was good, but it got to the point where I was having meltdowns. So I'm at school and I'm feeling this overwhelming sense of like doom. Something was gonna happen, and so I'd go to the bathroom and I'm crying in the bathroom, and I'm actually using the excuse to go to the bathroom just so I could kind of calm down because I didn't know what was going on, and it was kind of freaking me out because even though I was an anxious person, I still managed, but I wasn't managing anymore. I was kind of falling apart, and so
Yeah.
I don't think it was like one definite time, like one definite incident. I did have some things going on in my family at that time that was weighing on me heavily.
Mm.
Um, but I think it was just accumulation of all of it for me. And yeah, eventually I couldn't hold it. And then eventually I did tell someone because I was scared. So I
Who
told
did
my
you
mom.
tell? Who did you feel comfortable telling?
I told my mom actually. I've just always been that type. I recognize with myself if there's something wrong or if I have an issue with someone, it's very easy for me to kind of speak up and say something. So I was just like, Mom, I am not okay. Like, I need some help. I don't know what is going on, but I'm kind of nervous, I'm like, I'm scared. Can you help me? Type of
Mm.
thing. So I did tell
Mm.
her.
And so is that when you started getting some help or?
Unfortunately, no.
Hmm.
So I did not come from a family that really understood what mental health was even really about, like what that meant to take care of yourself, any type of mental health issues that wasn't talked about, And my mother, she was a single mother. She had 4 kids, she was in the military. So that's probably where I got some of my type A personality at that young age from seeing her, right? Just a smidge, but honestly, she was busy,
Yeah.
just
No, I mean,
emotionally.
4
I think.
kids, single mom. I mean, I was a single mom myself and I only had 2 kids. It's a lot. I can always cut this out, so we're good. So anyway, so a single mom, I was a single mom too. It's a lot of pressure to be by yourself and not have someone else. I ultimately was lucky to have my current husband get involved and help, but wow, that's hard for your mom and that's hard for you. But now here you are today working in NAMI and you're actually working on you've finished your undergraduate degree in psychology, correct?
I did.
Congratulations. And you're looking at getting a master's and you want to start your own. So something happened where, I mean, I know, and this is an important fact for the audience to understand. A lot of times kids, the first adult they go to, the adult can't handle it. And so did you go to another adult or did you go somewhere else? I mean, somewhere you got help because you're here today.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So the thing about me is, despite however many breakdowns or whatever I go through, I continue to fight for myself. So I told my mom, and she kind of gave me the cold shoulder and was just like, "You're just acting up, kind of figure it out," And I was just like, "Okay." So I did what but I eventually told her. I did try to tell some teachers that I trusted. Again, they didn't really help me that much, but I just kept being like persistent with my mother. I was like, something's not right. Like, I'm not okay.
Right.
And then eventually, I think she saw. It took a few years, but once I reached high school, I think that's when she could see that visibly I just wasn't okay because I wasn't really saying as much anymore. And my
Mm.
grades slipped, and she was like, okay, something's really wrong, So she did eventually get me some help.
But and I just had a conversation with another NAMI program specialist like me, Lori Schechtman, and you two know each other well. She was telling me that a lot of parents need to have grace about this, that it's really hard for parents. And your story is just illustrating. And as a parent, it took me a year and a half to hear my daughter when she said, I think I have bipolar. And I did not want to admit, I thought I was at fault. I thought I did something wrong. And that as a parent, it's just it just happens. You don't want your kid to have this problem. But when you started getting help, things changed, didn't they?
I'm not gonna lie to you. At first, as a kid, it did not.
Okay.
When
So
I
what did you
got the
start with?
diagnosis, honestly, the diagnosis I think was relieving to have that. I was just like, okay, so I wasn't making this up in my head. I'm not just being a bad kid because that's really what I carried around. I carried a lot of guilt that I was just too much. I was causing issues to my family, even though I was trying my best not to. Um, but I can say she did try to get me into therapy, and stuff like that. But as a kid, I didn't grow up hearing nothing about mental health. So I didn't really understand the purpose of going to talking to someone. I was like, this isn't going to help me. So I didn't
Hmm.
take it as serious, I can say, when I was in high school. It's when I became an adult and I was like, okay, it's still here, y'all. It's
Not going
not
away.
gonna go nowhere. So, let's try and handle this. Be an adult and take care of yourself. So
Hmm.
I did go to therapy when I was an adult, and that actually really helped me because And that's another thing. Finding the right therapist is so important,
Mhm.
because even now, my mom had to come back because she's into the mental health field as well. She was like, "Yeah, the therapist that you saw when you were younger actually was very bad. She actually made it worse." And I was like, "Well, thanks for letting me know."
But
Yeah, so
that's
it's
but
really important to
again,
find.
that's why we do NAMI, because NAMI is education, support, and advocacy. And this mental health world, your story is just a perfect example how complex and difficult it is. And so, I mean, we
Yes,
didn't even really start seeing the brain and what it was doing to the 1990s with MRIs. So we didn't even know what we're dealing with. Did you start medication as an adult as well?
I did. I did. They put me. So the medication story was kind of crazy. I can say as a kid, they put me on a lot and it was too much. I don't know why they put it so high. But I think that was one of the reasons why I struggled in high school, was because I was trying to get acclimated to the medication that they were giving me. It was just different dosage. But then as an adult, they switched my medication, and that one seemed to work for me way, way, way better.
Okay.
But yeah, I took a small doses. They realized that I actually didn't even need that high of a dose. It's actually like the smallest dose you could have. I was taking
Function
medication
fine
at that.
at that time?
Yeah, yeah.
Was it an antidepressant they were giving you?
Um, when I was a kid,
Yeah. Is that what they
yeah,
started with?
yeah, as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an anti the popular one that they give you, and the it just was not
It's
working
not
for
for
me. It
everybody. I
was,
mean, yeah, it's complicated. I mean, Prozac is a lot times better with men. Zoloft can be better for women, but some women don't tolerate the medication that it's suspended in, and it gives them digestive issues. And so medication is difficult, but it really helps. Did you feel it balancing? Because depression, as I understand, is with like serotonin and dopamine and those neurotransmitters. And so
yes.
antidepressants help with that. And that's what helped with you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can say, because that's funny, because they put me on the Zoloft when I was a kid, and that just made me feel terrible. Honestly, it was the
Yeah.
hardest thing to acclimate to. But as an adult, they put me on like the Prozac, and the Prozac was amazing for me for some reason. It
Better.
just really helped. Yeah, it helped with a lot of things. So I was very grateful for that, and I didn't have to take a really really high dosage. Like I said, they put me down to the smallest dosage that you could have, and it worked for me. At that time.
So,
Yeah.
how long did it take you to find the therapy and doses that worked for you? Like 2 years, 3 years?
Oh, it probably took, I mean, what I started therapy when I was like 18 or 19. It probably took about, yeah, around 2 to 3 years. I did see some therapists, they were okay, but like I said, once I found that one therapist that really worked for me, they got me on. I was already kind of on medication, but I was able to kind of lessen the dosage, and they really helped me to realize how much more power I have, just within myself, of taking care of myself and just showing up for myself, because I've struggled with that, learning how to just be like, okay, it's okay not to try and do 15 things in a day. It's okay to not be
Yes.
okay. I struggle with like, okay, well, let me sit down today, but then I feel bad for doing that. So it helped really set those boundaries of just like, okay, today we're a little anxious, so what can we do to help? I have 15 things to do today. I'm going to try and maybe do three, and I'm still proud of myself. It's okay, type of thing. So, yeah, that therapist, I'm so grateful for her, because before her, I struggle with that. I still kind of struggle
Just
with
had
it.
a
I'm
lot
not
of
going to lie.
lot of
Yeah, but
voices telling you you're not good enough and you're not doing enough and da da da.
yeah,
Yeah, those voices are annoying. I had them for many years myself. And I think I'm going to be honest with you, I think a lot of women struggle with that because we're trained to be caretakers. But here's what I tell everybody. You can't do good if you don't feel good.
that is so true. I tell people that all the time. I'm like,
Awesome.
you giving from an empty cup is not going to be okay. Fill your cup first, and then you can help everybody else. I always go back to the saying too, like, when you're on an airplane and you're about to, you guys are falling down. They say to put the mask on you first, so then you can save the other person. Because you can't be trying to save them and then you pass out yourself. So
I'm
yes,
not gonna help
I
anybody.
you're right. So you have to really, I really learned strongly to advocate for your self care. Yeah, it
And
starts with
so,
you.
could you tell folks? So, when do you think you got sort of stabilized and felt? Because now you're actually out doing advocacy work, and doing this podcast is one of those things. Talking to others, and you're going into classrooms, and I think some of the classrooms you went into were your past classrooms. I'm not sure the schools you went into, and you are telling your story as what we call youth presenters. In 10 minutes, you tell what you're talking about here in a longer period of time, but when was it? Because there's kind of a journey. First, you have the awareness and maybe even a crisis. Some people have had more of like a crisis where they punched something or they yelled at someone or they hurt someone, whatever. And then you get a time of balance, what we've talked about, this 2 or 3 years of you finding out what therapists and what medication worked. When was it that you felt you were ready to start helping others?
Ooh, that's a great question. So honestly, I think most of like my early 20s, like even like the teen years from like 18 to 21 to 22, it was a lot of work that I was continuing to do on myself, but I started to realize, um I think I just felt more empowered with, okay, like this is something that I deal with, but it doesn't have to control my life, so I think around what, I think I've been doing this for almost what, 2 years now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So around like 24, 25. So yeah, a few years ago, I just recognized that, like, I'm not the only one struggling. And I started feeling very like drawn to wanting to help other people. I was like, I feel like I'm not the only one who feels this way.
Hmm.
But how do I reach those people? How do I
Hmm.
get out there? How do I do these things? And so, fortunately, through my schooling, I had a volunteer opportunity, and I was like, I've always wanted to work with NAMI. And so I did that, and then now look at me, here I am. Now I'm the
You are the
coordinator.
Arizona state coordinator for the youth
Yes,
presenters. Yeah.
yes,
And that's the
yes.
awesome thing about NAMI. It gives us a lot of opportunities to either be a support group leader or to tell your story through in our own voice or as an ETS youth specialist. So, can you tell people how has this work helped you, by giving to others? How is that helping you to fill your cup?
Honestly, I think I've always had strong empathy, for people. So, I can feel when people are going through hard times, and I just want people to know, that you're not by yourself, because for such a long time for me, I kind of did feel by myself, even though other people were around me. Um, so this has really just empowered me to be able to be like, hey, no, like we can do this together, like nobody's ever by themselves. And so yeah, just helping people to speak up for themselves and advocate for yourselves, because it's really hard. Nobody tells you how hard it is to get to the point of recovery. So I just want to be there to, even if it's just to offer you a smile or just give you encouragement to keep going, whatever you need, like that's what matters to me. So
Do you have any stories or anything of someone you connected? Because so the audience knows you kind of go into the classrooms and tell this little story that you just told us today. Do you have a story of anyone being touched by what you said in a classroom and talking to you and how you helped them?
yeah, actually, I had a presentation. It was at a conference, and so it was at a church. And I was like, okay, it'd be good. When I walked in, because normally I present between, sometimes like 30 kids, sometimes 10 kids. There was about 50 to 100 people, women at this conference. And I'm not gonna lie, I've never really been too nervous, but I was so nervous because these are grown women, and I was just like, am I gonna be able to, like, And it was crazy. Before we went on and I gave the story, one of my track coaches that I was in high school with, I connected with her, and I was telling her the hard time that I was having. I was like, I was dealing with depression. It was really difficult for me. And, even she was like, I didn't know you were going through that, because they're like, Candace, why are you not trying hard enough? Why are you not doing? And I was just like, I'm having a hard time. And I think she recognized that, and she actually even apologized. She was like, I didn't know, we didn't mean to be hard on you. So that was wonderful to even have that connection. But when I gave my story, I got like a standing ovation. I was so shocked. I was it really warmed my heart because when you're doing these things, you never realize how impactful it is until someone else tells you, right? And when I looked up, I looked over, and the chat coach that I was talking about, she actually came up and she gave me a hug, and she actually had tears in her eyes. She said, "Oh my God." She said, "Look at you." She said, "You're so wonderful." And I was like, me? I was like, little me. And I had another young adult, I guess she connected with it more than I thought. And I
Mhm.
actually ended up talking to her after my presentation, and we actually are still connected to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, and she was just like, "Wow, I thought I was the only one," and I was like, "No, girl, we are here, okay? We just don't talk about it because it's scary, and I that's why I
Mhm.
love the work that we do, because we are empowering other people to speak up. You don't have to be by
Yeah.
yourself.
So, do you still today struggle with episodes of depression? And if so, how do you handle it today? What are some of the tools you use to deal with your depression today?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great question. I still deal with it at times. To be honest, it's a little bit more difficult as I've gotten older, because I think I'm okay. Until I realize I'm not okay. I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm feeling just a little, just a little sad, or, just a little withdrawn. And then I'll realize, like, I'm in a depression. I'm in a depressive episode, and
Mm.
I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I
It's
think it's
hard.
stuff like,
It's hard to tell.
yeah, because like as an adult, you're always working. I've always been having to work, going to school, so it's like I always have so many things going on that I don't realize that I'm like extra tired this week, and like I don't know why, and it's because I'm kind of starting to fall into a depressive episode. So honestly, the one thing that helps me the most is really just learning to take care of myself, and just like taking time. I do not take enough time for myself. I feel bad sometimes doing that. But what I recognize too is sometimes it just means like picking up the phone, calling my sister. It could be just going to the park. It could be watching a nice movie, just something that kind of helps towards my
Slow
self-care.
down and just says, "This is for me." So I feel like I'm filling my cup. And for all the women out there, we're not good at this. And like I said, you can't do good if you don't feel good. And I've found that when I do self care, because I myself, as impure, I struggle with anger issues, and which ended up in an eating disorder. And I know a lot of women end up with that too. But I find as I do self care that I have less anger in the world. I'm more, regulated, and I have more of a cushion to deal with, whatever life throws at us, because we never know, do we? Like, just setting up for this podcast was a little anxiety provoking.
Yes, it was.
But we
We managed though, right? We're,
technology
we're
didn't want to work
here.
with us.
Without
Exactly. But it,
a
it worked. Taking deep breaths and just keeping trying, it worked. And that's the same thing with the mental health. And so is there anything else you would like to tell the audience today about depression? Because depression, just for everyone to know, it's as complicated as cancer. They still don't know a lot of the times about the causes of it. They don't know what starts it all the time. It can be scary for people. And I know my daughter struggles with depression and will spend days in bed and just sink to the bottom of the tank. So, what can you tell people that might be struggling with it, that you'd like to tell them to give them a little hope?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes even if all you did in the day was just get out of bed and take a shower and make some food, like you're still doing amazing. It is so hard. I think people don't understand, like, when you get into those depressive episodes, how hard it is just to move. It can take so much of your energy. And so if you did that, you're doing amazing. And just remember to focus on you. Do not compare yourself and your life to other people. Just know that you're always doing the best that you can do in the given moment. So never lose hope. And if you do, sometimes it's okay to reach out. Sometimes you just have to reach out to family, or someone that you just trust, and you don't even have to speak on your depression or what you're going
Mm.
through. It could just be, hey, can we go to the movies? Hey, can we go get some lunch? Because with depression, you tend to push people away, and that's when you actually need people the most. So just advocate for yourself in those type of ways. Even if you don't want to, I'm telling you, your friends, your family, they want to hear from you. They rather get your help than you sit by yourself, or have to try and pick yourself up when there's so many other people around you that want you there and they want to help you. So,
Well, thank you, Candice, for your story of your journey. Depression is a hard one because you are not in your right mind. And you do need someone outside of you to kind of help you, guide you, and it sounds like you had a lot of people around you that helped you. And we're going to have another podcast with Candice, and we're going to explore that a little bit more about connection and working with others and not being afraid and realizing you're not alone. Um, so thank you so much for your time to talk about a hard subject, depression. And thank you for what you do with youth presenters.
oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And, it's always a pleasure to be here. And yes, I love what I do with the young adult presenters. So, yes, I'm blessed to have this. So,
Thank you. Depression cast a shadow over Candace's life. It fed on her traumas. It made her feel lost, hopeless, and worthless. And she's not the only one. Depression has increased among Americans in the past decade, especially among teenagers. Roughly 1 in 5 teens say they've had a major depressive episode in the past year. Now, depression goes hand in hand with other problems such as anxiety, bipolar disorder, eating disorders, chronic health problems, substance abuse, and overuse of social media. Yeah, that list is just depressing. But Candace's story has an even more important lesson. She dealt with it. She found and nourished supportive relationships. She got help, then found meaning and purpose working on her degree in counseling. But she wanted more, so she's now serving as the statewide youth coordinator for Arizona NAMI's Ending the Silence. So the research on depression is quite sobering. I was fascinated by a summary of research published in Advocacy Advances in Psychiatric Treatment. Researchers found that depression acts as the canary in a coal mine. It can warn us of troubles that lie ahead, such as genetics account for more than a third of the risk of depression and 70% of the risk when it comes to repeated severe depression. About twice as many teens suffered depression as adults, but most get little or no treatment. Among teens that died by suicide, 56% first suffered serious depression. Then a long-term study of teens who suffered depressive episodes found that 62% later suffered major depression and 44% attempted suicide at least once. I have to repeat that. 44% attempted suicide at least once. Early marijuana, alcohol, and drug use increases the risk of depression, but on the other side, depression increases the risk of later drug and alcohol problems. To kind of sort it out, find a summary of our research on depression and more on our website, strengthbeyondstruggle.org. But what does all that mean? Is it hopeless? Nope, not at all. Depression offers a chance to change. Candace's story proved that. So please, don't ignore the warning signs. Don't just gut it out. Don't suffer in silence. Instead, join us in ending the silence.
It's okay to just be me. We're all made to be unique. It's okay to have my needs. It's okay to be me. What's easy for others are struggles for me. I do things differently. Doesn't make me broken, it just makes me me. People out there help me through, ones who care about me and you. Through my struggles I find my strength. Feels so good to be me. What's easy for others are struggles for me. I do things differently. Doesn't make me broken, it just makes me me. People helping me to get through have their own struggles too. Even though they have their strength, they are human like me. Through these struggles we build our strength. We all want to feel healthy. Even though we make mistakes, struggles build our strength.